NFTs. We're here to talk intellectual property. We are here to talk vertical integration, and we are here to talk with Hatham and Christian about an incredible project called Stems Dao. But before we get into that, anybody who knows me knows that we don't start any Crypto Mondays where I start this thing off normal. So if y'all know me, y'all know what y'all need to do. I need y'all to do a really quick stomp, clap, stomp, clap, stomp. There we go. Keep it going. You don't need it like I need it. I'm just glad you still want it. So they keep my rooster rising. I'm thankful for this moment. We've loved each other for some time. You shine in every moment. But when you back that thing up on me, I just can't control it. If this ain't love, it's way more than sex. Hey, hold me close, you say my soul, I must confess. Oh, darling, when you say you want me, Lord knows I'm blessed. Oh, God, if this ain't love, it's way more than sex, way more than sex. Yeah, she got me like, whoa, oh, 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 oh. Come on. Yeah, she got me like, whoa, oh, 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 oh. How she got me like, y'all, she got me like, whoa, oh, 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 oh. Cause if this ain't love, it's way more than sex, way more than sex. Yeah, she got me like, wow. And that's as much as I'm gonna make it about me, I'm a promise. Cause real shit, y'all, I've been so excited for y'all to hear what Hatham and Christian have to say, because they really embody the things that I truly love about people who are really doing things in this space. They never make it about themselves. They're always so excited about the work that they're doing. And in truth, the more that I was learning about Stems Dao and what they're doing specifically for creatives and musicians in this space, and the way I was hearing how they were leveraging the smart contract technology in space to allow more people to participate, the more excited I have been for that. So real shit, we have to shout out Nate for making this connection happen. Y'all, can we give some love to Nate? Let's give some love to the Hugh for hosting us. Let's give some love to Blue for giving us some phenomenal photography. Let's give some love to Imani for making it happen. And give some love to yourselves. And then on top, but without further ado, I need y'all to give some real love for Hatham and Christian of Stems Dao. Let's fucking go, y'all! Hatham, Christian, in all honesty, it is so exciting to have y'all here. Thank y'all so much. If y'all could, like, I know that we're gonna go more into like the music and the projects, but if y'all could give like a quick one sentence about y'all, like, I don't know, not necessarily the whole life story, but just something interesting about you guys, if you guys. What's one thing that people wouldn't expect to know about you guys?
Wouldn't expect to know. I just dyed my hair blonde like 3 days ago.
Let's go!
And also, this is the first actual event we do at Stems Dao, so very excited to share with you guys.
Let's go. Christian, you're up.
I was, before getting into music, I was a officer, nuclear engineer on a submarine.
Wow. Thank you for your service.
For 5 years.
For 5 years.
All right, so now we got the boring stuff out of the way. So now we're gonna get into the fun stuff. So I warned them that I wasn't gonna come with the normal questions. But I wanted to, but for me, it's not just important what they're doing, but it's kind of how they got there. And at the end, the more I was hearing Hatham and Christian speak, the more I was learning that so much of what they did came out of a personal passion and personal connections. So since this is music, I gotta ask, Hatham, Christian, as an adult, what's the last song you remember listening to that reminded you to fall in love with music again?
Yeah, sure. So like I just talked about, the submarines, imagine months at a time underwater. There's no internet. You don't get to talk to anybody. You don't see anybody outside. There's no email. There's no phones. There's no TikTok. There's nothing. There's just your headphones and music and maybe a book. So most nights it'd be like sitting in my rack staring at the wall that's right there in front of me. But I don't know if anybody knows Todd Turge, but he's a DJ, and there's a song Snooze for Love. It's a really good song. Recommend listening to it. That song was just like anything that takes you to another world. That's something you need, especially when you're all alone down deep underwater. And so that really was impactful for me.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for me it was really freestyle rapping. It's not really one specific song, just rap in general. Any Nas or any old school rap like Tupac, etc. And freestyle rapping with my best friends like 3 years ago, and just getting to know them a lot more, just getting very vulnerable with them, and then exploring that as COVID made us spend more time alone. I'd literally start freestyling on my own to just get thoughts out and feel better about myself, and just clear my thoughts out really. But yeah.
No, 100%. I think anybody who develops a relationship with music or art in any way, shape, or form can understand its cathartic capabilities. So the fact that for you, your real relationship came from the healing you were able to create from it, thank you for sharing that. That's mad vulnerable, and that's really, really beautiful of you. Thank you so much. But on that note, but that's really the thing of this. We all come to these spaces because we're excited about the crypto, more excited about the crypto than the Monday, let's be honest. But in any given case, the things that draw us to this space come from so many different places. So I know where y'all come from as music heads and military vets, but I'm very curious as to what was the thing, not just what brought you into crypto, because so many of us have probably heard it through different things on the internet. What I'm more curious is about what inspired you to actually participate in this space? What was the thing that made you be like, you know what? I'm gonna dip my toe.
Yes. So, as you were saying, actually, crypto up until NFTs came to be had a different energy to it and culture to it. It was very similar to tech in general, even more. I would say even more down those lines, and really with NFTs, it became a cultural phenomenon. Just attracted a lot of other kinds of people from the kinds that we had initially, and made it more of something felt like a movement, almost a religion of sorts, to be honest. If you want with its missionaries and prophets, etc.
And evangelists. We can't forget about them damn evangelists.
Yeah, those were there before the NFT.
You're right.
Yeah. But yeah, I think that made me want to get into this more, and then I never thought I'd find a way to. My background is kind of in engineering, and I didn't think I'd find a way to combine the engineering and music and art. And I'm actually very grateful to NFTs for shining a spotlight on artists and creators, and making it so everybody can spend time on this and expect it to have a good, decent life, be properly rewarded. So really, that's when it started for me. And then the way this actual project started. The people I was saying I'm freestyling with, two of them made a song together, and they decided to drop it, fractionalize it in the form of stem layers. So a song is generally broken down into layers: vocal, drum, bass, etc. And they did that with that song, and wanted to drop it, and then I got involved, and we realized there's a lot more to what can be done with music and NFTs, and I just became obsessed with it because it actually makes so much sense. I can keep going. Actually, I'll just say one other thing. Yeah. So record labels are called record labels because they were initially, the point was to manufacture and distribute records like actual discs. And to this day, record labels are still called that way, although most consumption is done via streaming. So it's we're so we're so delayed, and there's so much to do in this space that it just made so much sense to jump on it.
Absolutely. So now that same question extends to you, Christian.
So I needed a job after I got out of the military, and this was in May of last year, and one of my best friends from college, Nikita, who's one of the other founders in this project, he was the one who made the song, was talking about fractionalizing it, and one of the few things that I did like about my previous job is I worked with my best friends, and that was something I was looking forward to in anything else I did. And I had this opportunity to start something with my best friends, and that's the best gift ever, which is something not only Web3, but it's Web3 is definitely good at that.
I think all of us are in this room because the friendships that we've made because of and through Web3 have been more meaningful than any of us could have anticipated. If you can relate to that sentence in any way, can you give yourself some applause right now real quick? There we go. That's what we love to hear, y'all. We are here because we believe in that vision. But one thing that I've learned as a creative, and I'm pretty sure that y'all have learned as creatives and programmers, is so many of these solutions, specifically as they come to music and NFTs, largely come from ways that the music industry, the record industry, as you called it, has failed artists successively. And one thing I love about your project is that much of your project is made to answer some of the issues that creatives have. So in your experience in working with creatives towards tailoring this project, what were some issues that you found with traditional services that people think they're getting their music out to the world where they're in control of it, only to learn in many cases it's not entirely the case?
Yeah, no, I've been very shocked to learn a lot of things about the space. Like, for instance, about 60% of streams of songs that you listen to on Spotify, when you listen to a song, you're actually indirectly paying someone or some entity. 60% of streams are rewarding one of three big labels, Universal, Sony, and I'm blanking on the third one. So that's been a crazy thing too. And this number is actually decreasing because more people are making music on Spotify that are not signed to a record label. Because it's becoming more easier, more accessible to make music. It's easier to just distribute. You can just post your stuff on Spotify, and that's also been kind of a cue for Web3. Because if everyone becomes a music maker, like you like music, but you also explore your tendency to want to make music, that would be like way better set up with a kind of decentralized DAO environment. Other numbers like 70 to 80% of revenues typically in record label contracts go to the record label, which is insane. And then the typical way it's done actually, when you have a small artist that is trying to get signed to a record label, and so you have a record. Sorry, it's kind of hard to focus, guys. Can you just keep it down?
Y'all, can we give the guests our respect, please? We want to make sure that we hear everything that they have to say. Because
this is also mind blowing. So when you make music, if your music is good enough to the labels and they want to buy your masters, they give you a cash advance. So they give you money, but that money is actually not yours. You're supposed to pay it back from tours and merchandise. So imagine the people who had cash advances and then COVID hit. And then when you pay it back, you still don't own your masters. So it's kind of a form of indentured servitude that really just exists because of the way it started, like manufacturing records. And so where Web3 comes in is it really just completely cuts that out. Like the middleman is cut out of the equation. And that's just the first layer, I'd say. But yeah, that's kind of what motivated us, I'd say. In terms of the industry.
Yeah, I'd say one other thing is artists, they want to create art. And so a lot of times in traditional music, there's controlled release schedules. They may not be able to collaborate with someone. They may not want their art gets modified after they make it.
Yep.
So something that I think that's interesting what we're doing is we're creating this opportunity for this infinite potential of creative endeavors where you're building on, and we'll talk about Stems more, but you're building on top of the music in terms of remixes, visual art. You're collaborating with other visual artists, other musicians, and everyone collectively owns what is being produced.
No, that sounds absolutely awesome. Which kind of goes into, now we get into the more nitty-gritty specifics of this project, which is also going to tell each and every one of us how we can be involved with them. So first off, question. If anyone here knows what a STEM is, when they're saying Stems DAO, raise your hand real quick. All right, beautiful. So unfortunately, that was a little bit less than half of the audience, which means that we have some educating to do. So in that case, who wants to tell these folks what a STEM is? All right. So for me, as a musician, what I define as a STEM, when we're recording songs in the studio, every single individual track is basically given its own recording space. So there will be an individual track for the guitar. Sometimes there will be one pan to the left, one to the right. There will be another for the drums. There will be several different ones for the vocals. I don't care what anyone says, no matter what record Beyonce record, there's multiple takes, there's multiple voices. She is not just one take. She's one take for each track. There's a difference. Anyway, but in any case, the stems are the individual components of each song, which I think what y'all are doing with Stems DAO and allowing anybody to interact with that through certain ways is really exciting. So now that I've explained it and had my rant, what is Stems Dao?
So Stems Dao, we're calling it a Web3 music label. So we're trying to rethink the whole record label idea and factor in everything that is good about Web3. So it's going to be community owned. The people that are involved early on will get rewarded via a governance token. And then the first 25 artists, so the Genesis collections will all get a significant portion of the entire supply to also shape the DAO. And by the way, a DAO is a decentralized autonomous organization, so we're not setting ourselves up as a company. We have a Discord. Everything is just open for the community to give input in. We literally are sharing our designs for our website with the community to give feedback. So everything from the ground up is going to be community owned. And then so what we actually do is we help musicians drop NFT collections of even an existing composition or a new composition that is broken down into stem layers, and then they can choose to have a visual component that goes with it, so a visualizer. That's what we prefer, because then it's also a piece of art that stands on its own, and it's not just you're not just re-releasing something that is on Spotify on the blockchain. And then the idea behind using stem layers is kind of this basic pure building block for composability. How many people here are familiar with Loot, the project, NFT project? Okay, not many. So there's this project called Loot where they just rolled out 10,000 pictures of literal text that describes an avatar, and those as soon as they rolled them out, the guy that rolled them out was the founder of Vine. They really exploded, and the community was built around those NFTs and started creating universes that you could plug in your NFT to and kind of have an avatar based on that text. And so the idea here is the stem layer is a Lego kind of building block that musicians can use in future. Basically, you can use the drum of this song in a future song, and now we can track it, and we can properly reward the original artist and the person building on the original artist's work. So that would be kind of the loose idea of this.
One thing I wanted to ask on that element with the visualizers for each individual track, considering that there are infinite combinations, I'm guessing that means that every single visualizer to some way will also be able to be built together for every element to create those individual things, or am I off?
Yeah, so basically the idea here is the artist has full control with every collection and how the visual art kind of manifests itself. So if the musician wants album art, that's what we'll do. We'll make that to go along with the collection. If they want to have generative audio visualizers to go with their stems, that's what we'll do. It's their creative exercise to implement how they see fit. So in this example you're talking about, there's a generative artwork with a stems collection. So it would be, each step would algorithmically plug into the visualizer to create its own according piece. Mm-hmm. And that's basically where it comes into play as standing as a piece of art on its own.
Awesome. No, that's absolutely awesome. But well, obviously, one thing that I'm pretty sure all of us who spend some time in this Web3 space begrudgingly know is that there are so many projects with so much hype and promise similar to this. The issue is that very few of them actually make it into the real world, which is why what y'all are doing is so exciting, because y'all actually have a timeline and things coming out that people can start interacting with in the very near future, correct?
Yeah, and I would say one other thing about the sustainability thing is there's been some big artists that come into the NFT space and they do drops, and then it kind of just goes away. It's kind of a cash grab. So we're really invested in making this a sustainable, self-fulfilling ecosystem where basically the idea is there's collective ownership in the success of every project. So if an artist releases a collection, we incentivize the community to build on it by giving them tokens, or giving them rewards, or giving them access to talk with the artists, or or going to one of their concerts. There's a lot of ways to incentivize people, but the idea is once everyone is invested in the success of the artist, they're going to be everyone's going to be on the same economic playing field with the same incentives, which does not exist in the traditional music industry.
Yeah, and in terms of what is this working? Yeah. In terms of what you were, is it working? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, in terms of what you were saying, so we haven't actually had our first drop yet. Test. Yeah. But so ways to get involved is really just like participate in the Discord. And if you're a musician and you want to work, like, you want to have fun making art, we'd love to talk to you. You want to just learn about this space, and you kind of doubtful, come talk to us. We've been really happy to onboard people, regardless of whether they work with us or not, because it's just better for the entire community to have more people in the space. And yeah, the first drop should happen in January. And again, the first 25 drops will be special because the people the artists and the NFT minters and holders will all get ownership in the DAO, and they will get to shape how it goes. And it's very important for us that we have a good mix of musicians, we have some visual artists, and just people that are very passionate about music. Although I was told everybody's passionate about music.
Question. If you went through any point this week and didn't hear music or didn't relate to music in any way, shape, or form, raise your hand. I rest my case. So on that note, this wasn't a question that I had originally prepared, but the more that we've been talking, the more I've been really excited, because some of us in here have an understanding of what a DAO is, and when we think about a music label, when we think about Web3, when we think about DAO, the way that you are describing it, it makes a lot of sense. But if we're looking at every single one of those elements individually, there's so many conflictions within them. So what I'm genuinely curious for those of us who have some awareness of the benefits and shortcomings of a DAO and the benefits and massive shortcomings of a record label, what are the things within StemsDAO that you're excited that allow it to be a Web3 label without middleman style management?
Sure. Yeah. So, it kind of comes back to why are DAOs happening? And so, first we'll start with the problems of the DAO. The main problem of the DAO is exactly inherent to its nature. It's not centralized. Decision making does not happen quickly in a lot of circumstances. But in this scenario with music and the music industry, that's okay because there's so much that is lost in the traditional music realm of Web 2 that it far compensates by having artists who actually own the direction of the project.
I can jump in. Really, you should compare a DAO to a company. So typically a company has a board that makes decisions, and you don't know what the hell decisions they're making. You have no say in those decisions. Like, for instance, do you get to say what Spotify does, what their Q1 strategic roadmap is? Not really. So if you were to nuance a company and a DAO is really like a Discord with people that have tokens in the DAO that have incentive to participate. And then there's people that propose something to get done. The people who have tokens will vote on it, and then if it passes, it gets done. If it doesn't pass, it doesn't get done. The issue with this is sometimes you're making quick decisions, and you don't want 100,000 people to weigh in on whether this font is going to be like this or like that. So there's a model of just do it unless there's a veto. So you just share with the community what you're doing, and if there's pushback, then you just stop and you're like, okay, let's get a voting proposal. And then anything major usually would require a voting proposal. So in the context of StemsDAO, this is 6 months down the line when the tokens are properly distributed. So you have an actual good representation of the community owning the tokens. The decisions would be something like who's the next artist we're getting on board, or who do we prioritize, this person or that person. And then it's not it wouldn't be us making the decision, it would be everyone involved, including other artists. So that in a sense you're also somewhat curating. You know, like you're creating a vibe, like a community that kind of chooses and decides.
So the community connects over agency in terms of how the collective is addressing the content that's being presented to them, correct?
Yeah.
And I'd say one other thing is like with smart contracts, you know, there's this ability that doesn't exist in Web 2 where because everyone's a collective owner, everyone collectively receives revenue through transaction volumes of NFT marketplaces, as well as in the future there'll be streaming revenue. So there isn't this instantaneous, unbreakable code is law thing in Web 2, where in Web 3 it exists, where we can have basically, you know, there's a bunch, say 50 people own the stems of an NFT collection, which is tied to the song. That song's played on a streaming service, and every time that song's played, revenue is distributed to every single stems holder. That's kind of the future of music right there. And then additionally, there's also, you know, in the background, certain people are going to want to own the Drake song or the Eminem song. And so there's also transaction revenue happening in the background. And all of this money is flowing back into the holders of the DAO.
That is absolutely amazing. Like, I did not know that element. That element is really, 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 really exciting to me. And just real shit, once this talk is done, I'm going to be blowing up y'all's Telegram like crazy with more questions. But it's almost 8 o'clock, and I do want to make sure that there's some time for some questions from everyone here. But before we open the floor, what would you like for everybody here? We have artists, we have programmers, we have creatives, we have people of so many different disciplines coming here to connect because of the potential of Web3 and crypto. Tell me the different ways that you are excited to connect and build with the people in this room.
Yeah. If you're a visual artist, please come talk to us. If you're a musician, please come talk to us. If you're excited about what we just said, also come talk to us, please. We'd love to have as many people that like I think the vibe that Nick said at the beginning of this talk is what we're going for. It's just like people that want to make art, that want to have fun, that want to make sure that when the art is consumed, the people that put in an effort to make it are getting rewarded. So yeah, generally, like if this vibe like appeals to you, like feel free to come talk to us. Also, the Twitter handle is Stems Dao, and you can find everything over there. It's also StemsDAO.com. Yeah, just get involved. If you're a musician, you know, we'd love to think of ways to collaborate. We're working with small, independent, unsigned musicians and signed record label artists with millions of monthly listeners and anything in between. And we're just, you know, we're really more focused on the creative process and empowering the artist and like growing the space than we are like at a stage of like being very like curating like strictly or whatnot.
Yeah, and also, if you're not a good musician, you're still welcome to come. And we want everyone to come because basically we're, you know, creating you know, collaborative ecosystem. So within our community, we want artists to help each other out, learn from each other. We'll have artists that do collections come in and do like AMAs or talk with people who are interested. Like, how'd you make that song? What'd you do to do that? So you can learn how to actually make music. You can team up with other people and make a remix with one of the stems that's on the marketplace and make a new song, and we'll promote it. There's all, you know, just come.
Yeah, and for like, I guess this is also just a crypto, more broadly crypto crowd. I mean, I personally believe that the idea behind our NFTs is if you mint it, just keep it, because that's the whole idea. The first drop, we're considering making it free because it's two of the co-founders' song, and it will have a pretty big impact on like token distribution. But yeah, there will be, as soon as we get to that critical mass point where we're happy with our community and we drop, there will be a lot of back-to-back drops. We have a lot of things. You know, we're cooking up a lot of things. So if you just are curious about NFTs in general, yeah, feel free to follow, and we'd love to have you.
All right, so I'm about to open the floor for some questions, but real quick, can we give Haytham and Christian and Stems Dao some love real quick? All right, so I'm going to be a little awkward and turn the mic out. Who wants to come and ask the first question, or am I going to be awkward? Right here, right here, right here? Come on through. What's your name, brother?
My name is Lagardi. Pleasure to meet you all. How you doing?
Let's go, Lagardi.
All right, so my question tonight is, when it comes to stems, can it be applied to all the different mediums, visual, music? Because the way you described it was essentially sort of like the journey to the finish line, you know, having the stems represent the different parts of the music or the different takes on the music. Can that be applied to visuals as well?
Yeah, I mean, so basically, honestly, that was I hadn't really thought about the visual part of a composability, and that's honestly a really good idea, and I kind of want to now think about that more. But yeah, I don't see why you couldn't have basically, you know, artwork where people are building on top of it in connection with the music or independently of it. So to be honest, we haven't really ideated on that much, but it's entirely possible and feasible, and that's kind of the whole point of NFT technology is like everything is, you know, everything could be built on top of it.
Sure. Yeah, because I feel like in relations to like the album art, I'm an illustrator, so I see both avenues and both parties kind of collaborating and working together towards a better future. But you know, the way you described it, I was like, oh shit, you know, it kind of makes sense in that realm, because I feel like, you know, finding the correct visuals after you made the song, you know, you do need an album art. You do need something to represent what the song means. So getting into the visual realm, I think it could be a part of that STEM program.
That's a really good idea.
That's what it is.
Yeah. Also, I think you'll like this. The first drop, the visualizer is inspired by the cover art. So the cover art is a flower, and the visualizer is going to be like a flower that moves with the music, or like a statue with a flower skin that moves with the music. TBD. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely related. Do you do digital art?
Digital art, yes. I have yet to release my very first NFT. I've kind of been saving it for February this year. So I'm jumping into the circle. You know, it's a beautiful thing. I see it as a wave of the future, and I also see it as a great platform to connect realms that otherwise would be separate or wouldn't mold with each other and mix with each other too well. Besides just typical business. You know,
totally.
For the artist to expand.
Yo, where can people find your art real quick?
People can find my art all over Instagram. Slowly but surely, we're building a following. My Instagram page is makers_3000. So you can find all of my NFT art there when it starts coming out. Yeah, that's going to be
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Appreciate you guys, man. Thank you for all the words, man.
Yo, I want to open the floor up for like one or two more questions. Who else got one? TJ, come on.
I wanted to ask him about Meek Mill.
They want to ask about Meek Mill.
You see the tweet from Meek Mill recently about how if you want to buy his new mixtape, you have to have an ETH wallet. To me, there's always a turning point in crypto, and that to me in the music business is the turning point. When a guy like Meek Mill is putting out a mixtape and says you have to have an ETH wallet to buy my mixtape, that's exactly what you guys are doing. He just broke away from the whole industry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, that's a great example. I wasn't familiar with that, but Nas actually is dropping songs tomorrow on Royal, and they won't be available anywhere else. He's giving 50% of the IP to Royal, and essentially, when you stream the song, you'll be paying off the people that own the NFT. And I think that's definitely it's like the base layer for this thing to work is to figure out the royalties part, where if someone rolls out their song, like a big artist like Drake is rolling out songs on one platform, and that's the only way you can listen to it, then you track the streams for that, and NFTs allow you to just reward people that own the song or like own a part of the song directly. That's very hard to implement. Like I don't think that tomorrow Spotify is not going to exist, because it's very hard to like track streamings, etc. But down the line, it makes so much more sense than the way it's done right now. And we like the way we interact with that is we'd be like a brand within that. So we like feed these platforms stems and like bring people onto the space. So yeah.
Listen, man, that's the key. See, the community will decide whether or not the musician is good enough. I don't need Universal to tell me XYZ about some guy. Totally. So when Meek Mill comes out with a mixtape, and you can only get it by having an ETH address, that's the turning point. That's exactly what you guys are doing.
The end goal is that no one even knows they have an ETH address, but we'll get there.
They'll get there.
Absolutely. Yeah. All right, last question. Sorry, he had the last question. My fault.
It's great to see you all here. So for StemsDAO, just like Mike was just mentioning about the ETH addresses, I've noticed that like they're super trackable. So when a celebrity gives out their ETH address, they've literally given you access to knowing that this is their wallet on the blockchain. You check someone like G Money, for instance. You can check him on Etherscan right now, and you realize he has about $1.5 million in decentral games. You can know exactly what he's investing in. Now, using this for DAO decisions for like StemsDAO, you can use this to actually effectively make, portfolio decisions for your community on voting. So like Gmoney 444.eth, which is Jay-Z's ETH address. More game. Let's talk about Brantley.eth, which is the biggest holder of ETH addresses in ENS domains. Tesla.eth, SpaceX.eth. You can check majority of these addresses. ETHDev has about $1.5 billion within it. So we can really integrate this information without even an API into DAOs. They're just free open source on the blockchain. So I just want to know, with that info, how are you guys gonna, incorporate that into STEM? It's already there.
Yeah. So in terms of DAO decision making, we don't, it's tough. It's hard to determine what exactly should be voted on and how to decide the best way to decide what should be voted on. And two, right now it remains to be seen, like in terms of financial, like moving of money, what works better, DAOs or centralized actors, because you don't, in my opinion, some people disagree with this. You don't necessarily want a DAO running like the city or like, I don't know, the country. Some people would disagree with me, but so you got to find a balance in terms of using ENS addresses to make the business more productive economically. I mean, honestly, we don't really have a plan for that. And this is also because we as a label, we don't want to get too in the weeds with platform and engineering. What we want to do is basically be blockchain agnostic, take on artists who want to work on any platform that they find like matches their ethos and their community's ethos. Some artists are gonna be upset about the environmental impact of proof of work blockchains. So we'll offer up proof of stake blockchains that they can feel good about. So it's going to make it difficult in terms of monetarily and tracking if we have a bunch of different artists on different blockchains. But that's not really what we're trying to do. What we're trying to do is get as many people into the space as possible, as many musicians making a living off of music in the space as possible, and then preparing them for a future where the blockchain dominates everything, and they're ready to set and go, and they can stop making music if they want to, and they just got passive income for the rest of their life.
All right. That's satisfying. Thank you.
I lied. We got one last question.
So I was lately late to this talk, so apologies if you addressed this directly or indirectly. So it's kind of a play off of Stems. So I'm not an artist, but friends of mine are. So as far as samples go, did you cover samples specifically?
Do you mean like if you're taking a combination of stems and you're just like using that sample as a stem?
So like I'm an avid music listener, even though I don't make
You're talking
music.
about like Ableton, like if you were
Yeah, so like producers, like I mean, for the Kanye fans in here, he's famous for sampling songs.
Yeah.
Have you thought with StemsDAO about if a producer or an artist samples your sounds like higher level than Stems, like actual sampling of your music or your sounds? Like Lauryn Hill is like almost always sampled, like since her first album. So like would those, if you are sampled by a producer, would revenue flow to the original artist forever in the ways that like utility NFTs are now for like more visual things?
So the short answer for us, because we're doing stems, is no. Cause we're focused on stems. If the sample, like if the sample is like one stem, then yes. But there are other projects in the space like Arpeggi, which is basically a more like simplistic version of Ableton or any DAW like tool to make music. And I think that's where they're headed, where you can kind of track all the samples that are being used. the idea that we have is the same. It's just we're using a more pure building block. So if you think about
more primitive.
Yeah. So if you think about a sample, it's gonna have a stem. It's gonna have multiple stems in it.
Yeah.
So the idea is like if you can track all the different stems, then you can do this. You can do this too. But the assumption is that you have as many of the stems that are being used by like via your platform.
So, my fault. I don't mean to interrupt you. Hold up. Gotta go. No, just the more you were saying that, I was just excited because what I think you're also talking about is not just the samples, but the sample clearances, correct? Because for anyone in the traditional music world, there's two different types of sides of the business. There's the streaming side, which is done with the commercial purchases and like the streaming through the Spotify. There's also the publishing, the things on the back end where the music is used. Things for where the soul songs from the 1970s that Kanye would sample in the College Dropout, he had to clear it with their publishing. So I think what you're asking is with Stems DAO, let's say that I submit a song and we have an Earth, Wind, and Fire sample within that beat. Would Stems DAO have the resources to clear that sample? Is that what you're talking about?
And then additionally, like, forget about like smaller artists. They have an impossible time clearing things, but people all the way up to Kanye level don't get samples cleared, which I think is crazy. So it's like if Earth, Wind, and Fire or any type of artist that wants to like put their samples or their songs into open domain via NFTs, is that like a future direction to be able to allow revenue to flow back to them?
Yeah, that's totally the direction we're going towards. When the space needs to mature more for it to actually be realistic. Like in the short term for us, I can't tell you that revenue is going to come from royalties. Like you need a platform for that. But with enough, if basically there's enough network effects that just bring people onto platforms that have songs on the blockchain, then you'll slowly have all of it shift towards there. Right now, the way it's done, as Nick was saying, like you literally have to reach out to whoever owns the license and like deal with it. And if you don't, you may get sued by someone that bought like an earlier version of the sample. It's like a whole messed up process. But really, for that to be like the ideal version of that is what you're describing, and that's what we're pushing for. But it'll take time to actually really get there, I think.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
So before we send them off with
one last thing, actually,
absolutely.
for you. So we're also working on a Web3 version of a record label contract. So we're working with entertainment lawyers, and we have like obviously smart contracts engineers, but we're working with the artists to figure out the IP rights part of this thing, because like there's the NFT part, which is the mint sale, like what goes to the artist, secondary sale, like when the NFT is changing hands, like what goes to the artist, and then there's the IP rights, which is where the royalties kick in. And right now we're like working with artists to figure out like what makes sense, and we'll like open source a template for that actually. So yeah.
I guess just one last comment in a more technical sense, like stems and then samples, which are like a conglomeration of stems with versioning, like you mentioned, like versions of stems that are cleared legally. So if you made a mechanism where like some artists could clear certain versions of their stems for public use, and other ones where you would have to reach out to their lawyers, that would probably minimize friction with other artists trying to use their stems.
Yeah, I mean that would be ideal. It's just the idea is right. You're right on in terms of the idea, but it like the implementing it is more than just technical. It's like you need to bring the music onto like blockchain friendly platforms. Like if Spotify one day decides to give their streaming data to a blockchain platform and use that to reward people, it would cause a seismic shift, and then everybody would just jump on. And it will just take that like turning point to get to IP rights. Like for us, Stems Dao, like the treasury would get most of its revenue from royalties, like 3 years down the line or something. Optimistic. Thank you.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, before we send Hatham, Christian, and Stems DAO off with an amazing Crypto Mondays NYC welcome, just a quick reminder to everyone. If you haven't bought a drink at the bar, buy a drink. If you have bought one, buy a second one. And if you haven't bought a second one, then either the third, the fourth, or the 40th will put you where you need to be. I don't care if you're hungover tomorrow. Make sure to support these folks so that way we can come back and really make this place a home. Y'all, please give a warm applause to Hatham, Christian, Buy at the bar, and let's have an amazing night, y'all. Make some noise for yourselves.